everyone. I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, muchas gracias to everyone for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, and the love and support you all share with me. From the heart, I appreciate every one of you. Also, do help the message get out there by liking, sharing, subscribing, and hyping the video. Thank you. Well, everyone, getting right into it. I'm gonna do the profile I've been promising a lot of people I was gonna touch on, right? And before I get into it, just want to let everybody know there's a lot of he said, she said about this individual, right? So again, I'm doing the profile according to my knowledge, with my family, and certain people I know. In no way, shape, or form am I stating I'm right and nobody's wrong. But anyways, today I want to do a profile on Chalino Sanchez and basically what led to his death, right? Most importantly, what was so strong that ended up leading to his son's death. But anyways, for those that know, Salino Sanchez is born in El Guayabo. Guayabo is a little small town out in Los Mochis. Just to put a little back base, those who know that out there, there's a big family, right? There are the Perez. The Perez family, they're strong. They have a lot of power when it comes in that Mochis area. But anyway, say it for you guys just to remember this, right? Anyways, this little town is what Sinaloa was, right? Which everybody has to work the fields. If you don't live in Culiacan, there ain't too much to do, right? And at the time, it's just when organized crime was kicking off. So there wasn't as much as you see now. We're speaking about the 70s, 80s. Well, in the 80s, beginning 90s is when it really, skyrocketed. It started reaching new angles as it will play effect too here, right? At least in my belief. Anyways, Salino Sanchez, as most everybody that grows up in Sinaloa, the out goal is to do dirty. Just facts. Maybe at this time it wasn't like now, but there's certain different ways to do things. For example, my dad used to tell me that back in his days was there was rich ladies and the thing was to get in good with them, right? Understand they were married and it was just party, and that's how you made your feria. They will keep you happy, if that makes sense. And then later on, people started knocking walls down when it came to building certain legacies for families. If you guys get it. But anyways, according to what I hear, Chalino, excuse me, was that individual, right? He uh he was able to pull ladies at a young age. And unfortunately, like I said, is when narcos were kicking off, right? They were freshly starting their wiggle, and there's this lady, Rosalina. But what's important is this lady was the wife of El Chapo Perez. Remember, this is a big family out there, right? Where Chalino was from, all in that area. They, till date, still control, have a lot of power. Now it reaches down to Culiacan, you know, and basically within time, Chapo found out, Chapo Perez, or we'll just say Perez to not get confused, right? He would find out about what was going on behind his back with his wife and Chalino. And keep in mind, Chalino comes from a humble family, poor. So it was more of a, you could say, a hurtful situation due to who it was. You know, people start doing things and they think they're above the next man, right? Or the next person. And Salino was known for carrying and, the stories I heard, he was like a venado, like a deer. He couldn't be caught. He was just, he was just good at doing things, right? So what Chapo Perez did, kind of like a payback, was kidnap his sister in revenge, right? Take his sister and, you know, abuse, if you guys get it, bad, whooper. I'm talking about, even people out in Culiacan, they said it was just nasty, right? But not only that, he went off and embarrassed her by, afterwards, throwing her downtown in the street, naked, to prove a point that he was who he was, right? Kenny was a direct brother, son to the Perez. Anyways, he did not kill her. And when this happened, Chalino was just one of them individuals, right? He had him well set on him, period, point blank. Nevertheless, it was territory that at the moment a lot of people did not know, right? But he went out and he would end up killing Chapo Perez. And that opened up a can of worms, if you guys get it. At the time, the family starting, but it would, eventually become one of the biggest families out here in Sinaloa. But even then, it got so bad that, Salino had to split, leave. And it's how he ended up in crossing over to Coachella. What put a huge target on Chalino, right? And he did it to many families, including my family, right? Because ever since Coachella, before he started singing, he was known as a bajador, tumbador. What that meant is, since he was Sinaloense, him and his brother, right? They started a little scheme together, and his brother Armando, he would go down to Baja, Baja all over the border, right? Getting good with people, eventually find out where certain loads were gonna get, and Salino took care of it. He would go clip him and then resell, and that's what his doings were. He didn't have one family set to do it to, he just did it where they came across it was there. Of course, he made a lot of people mad, right? With reason. And, I noticed it myself, right? I'm not even that old. From coming as a kid to Culiacan, it's how the culture took a turn. Even my times, there was no plazas. There was no, they were working with popo. There was no pointers. It was just basically people earning their right by with lead, lead and blood. And it just, it turned different. And I understand someone that's from far away has a certain mentality that my belief was Chalino's, that he could still do this, right? And he continued, he continued certain places where there was things, he would take everything they had, and at times he would have to buck up and handle business. Again, he didn't know the hole he was digging for himself. And it came to play in Coachella. You know, Eventually they sent a hitman. You know, when it comes to news, I understand they tend to play it off as due to a song or it was due to this. And no, it was, believe me, he was sent to take him out because of the stuff he was doing. But, things played out and Chalino had what to defend himself with, and people suck up for him point blank. Is why he walked out of that place, right? Alive. Nevertheless, as time circled, he would eventually get busted, and I guess that's where he started taking it serious when it came to his corridos, right? And people started showing a liking to it. He started opening new doors. If he would have continued with his music, everything would have been, I believe, he would have been able to slowly slide out the water, right? But, he was angry. You see, when he got shot shortly before, his brother Armando got moved on too in TJ in a hotel for the same reason. Like I said, it was a group thing, right? One out there doing his thing, getting the points, the other one clipping them. Not aware of how, people were more in tune with getting information, right? And Sinaloa was aware of who was doing who or what, excuse me. Nevertheless, doors opened for him, and again, he could have, you know, just pull out and just do music, stay in the States. But, pride is, it works against every man. It's just facts. For those that go back to them days where normally you could see Salino Sanchez in the Parreal and Huntington Park, you guys know what he was doing, right? He went from Coachella in that area to doing it in LA. And LA is, when you compare it, let's just be real, there's a lot more people in LA. We're talking about factions, right? There's a lot more material to knock down. Then this ain't, if you're from out here in Sinaloa, it ain't no big thing, right? A lot of the cats are currently in power started off their business as tumbadores, bajadores, by clipping bodegas. It was just something that was there. Again, narcos weren't really nothing. They were just workers in a different branch, right? That were open game to clip. You know, well, I'm not gonna put a target on them, but anyways, I personally know people like that, right? And anyways, you get in with Pedro Rivera and blow up, right? And a lot of people are surprised. There's a lot of things that are tied together. I'm not gonna get into debt for obvious reasons, but in El Parreal, there was two little hood rats. Sorry I say it like that, but those that don't know that wanted to be homegirls. And it was Jenny Rivera and Graciela Beltran. They want to be around. They want to make feria. They were helping Salino. You know, you guys take that as you want to take it, just read between the lines, right? As you guys know, Graciela and Jenny ended up pulling out because when they killed Graciela Beltran's brother, they end up pulling out. Salino blew up point blank to the point where he felt it was okay to come to Culiacan and perform, knowing what he was doing in the state, knowing why he left to the state, and he could have done his homework. The family he moved on for reasons, right? How much power they held. But again, it comes with people feeling above things, feeling above situations. Pride gets involved, and he didn't, right? Before he came to Culiacan, he had the warnings. The warnings were real clear, You step foot in Sinaloa, anywhere in Sinaloa, you and your family are gonna, you know. Nevertheless, he didn't pay mind to it for his own reasons, right? Everybody speaks about that note while he's performing, right? That he got. And yeah, the note, it was basically telling him he wasn't walking out of Sinaloa. And there's no need to point fingers, but I'll just say the family of who he took out, they're the ones that dealt with it, right? But by this time, they had judiciales or police under their payroll. Again, that life took a turn and it took it quick, believe me. You know, those that seen the video knowing he took it serious at the moment, but he felt he could still get out of it, right? Because if it would have been taken serious from that event, he wouldn't have gone, drove into Culiacan to a party, you know? It's just pride, at my belief. But, you know, Salino tells everything in his songs. So at the end of the video, I'll leave you a couple songs I want you to hear. Pay attention to them. He tells you more than anyone could, right? But anyways, as you guys know, They would go. They were going into a party. They did a stop, identified themselves as police, and you gotta give it to this man. He bucked up. He knew what he did, and he went with these people by himself. He didn't want the people with him to take the rap for him anymore, you know. And unfortunately, he had one of them terrible deaths where, all that new era of torture came into play. For those that are aware how he was found tied. His face, you couldn't recognize him, with four to the dome, thrown on the side of the street. But you see what a lot of people don't speak on, or should I say don't know of, is the message. There was a note with him that day, warning his family and stating, this is how your sister should have been thrown. But again, Popo was working hand in hand, right, to what we see today. But again, this is through personal, family conversations, and you could say friends conversations, right? Because everybody, it's funny you say it like that, but everybody loves Salino out here. You know, he would eventually, all his music would be loved, but I don't take the finger of how he started and the things he did, right? A lot of people think that it was due to just the killing or him selling in the States, because he would clip and he would resell, right? Him and his brother. That was I think that was the biggest target, right? You clip Sinaloa in the States. You go down to Tijuas and you sell to the Arayanos. That's like picking at a scab, right? But again, who knows what went through this man's head? A lot of people say he had him well set. I believe he just didn't see the evolution of how the culture in Mexico evolved. Because, you know, he would have never stepped foot in Mexico. But, anyways, that's basically my personal profile on this individual. The songs I want everybody to pay attention to and hear is listen to Rosalino, one, and two, pay real attention to this one, Sapo. Just hear this song, please. Sapo will tell you a lot. Because you see, he didn't get to the States by his own will. He did not kill the Perez. He was just that, a Sapo, for those that know. But again, don't take my word for it. I'm just putting my personal experience with this. You can't take nothing from this man. But at the same time, that's the key word, right? Don't take nothing from this man. It was what it was. With this said, sorry if I don't make sense. I'm gonna hit the road as we speaking. By the time you guys hear this, I'll probably be back at the ranch. But I send my love to everyone. Please stay true to yourself and loyal to your loved ones.
This is so, it's not, we always